Welcome to DownNotableContent. We are Alex
and SJ Herschel. Today we rank Tears of the Kingdom bosses. Let's get right into it. Herschel.
Moroni's back.
She's back. She has been dormant for many months, but after I came back from Japan, I guess she's just very excitable. And she's been like all over you too, which is really rare.
You know, it's funny because when we first started the podcast, it was something like, well, what do we do about... Sorry about that. What do we do about Moroni? Like, she's just chirping away in the background. What do we do about that? And we kind of came to the decision that we were just going to roll with it. We were just going to kind of include her as a factor of our podcast. And then as soon as we made that decision, she just like stopped making noise.
Yep.
During episodes.
Absolute silence.
Oh. Hello.
There she goes.
And she just like stopped out of nowhere. But now she's back. And she's been active today, so we'll see if that continues. So I'm just going to close this real quick. Alrighty. But yeah, Moroni's back, and we are excited to bring you another episode because SJ's back from Japan now. You don't have to listen to my homemade intros on our mini episodes.
Your homemade intros might be better than the original.
You know, I
love that.
I was making it. And I was like, what if I did it? And I just kind of went for it, and it seems to have worked out okay. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it as much as we have.
Yeah, she's just...
Is she okay to do that?
Yeah,
okay.
She loves tearing up paper. That's
okay.
Fine.
But yeah, we have quite a few gaming updates and some fun stuff that we're excited to get to in this episode. But let's go ahead and start with your big gaming update, sir.
Yes. Let me first just plug our Patreon, because if you want to hear my whole Japan trip story, that is up on Patreon, or will be up on Patreon. So, but my main gaming update is that while I was in Japan, I played through the entirety of Pokemon X. I beat it. And holy cow, was it easy. I was bored. The only thing that kept me going was that I really liked my team. I liked the Pokemon that I had, and I just wanted to finish the game because I already started it anyway, and I finished it, and it was so easy. Yeah, not my favorite. There's some cool Pokemon, though.
Can I throw something out on Pokemon real quick?
Yeah.
So you've now played through every generation, correct?
Yeah.
You need to play Scarlet and Violet. Now here's the thing. I was recently listening to I was catching up on some old podcast episodes from these podcasts that I like. And I was listening to their like Game of the Year for 2022 stuff. And a lot of them, and they're like very cynical video game reviewers, so like very harsh.
Okay.
And they were like the new generation of Pokemon was like in their top 10s, and they were like, at launch it was a mess, but they fixed enough of it now that it is the best Pokemon has been since like generation 3.
Okay, I'm sold.
So,
because here's the thing.
Do some more research, right? Well, see if you really want to invest. But from what I understand, there's enough going on and enough that's been fixed that makes it like...
I have been looking for a reason to buy Violet and Scarlet, because from everybody I know that's played it, most at least have said that their enjoyment far outweighs any bugs or issues they encountered. And most of it is like performance issues. So there might be like low frame rates here and there. Most of the people I've talked to haven't themselves experienced like game breaking bugs that were all over the media. So I'll have to get it. I'm sure I will. I've just been on a Pokemon spree, man. Like,
I know.
I've just been playing them. Like,
you've got to do it
crazy.
because you've played every single one now. There's only one that you haven't played. You got to do it.
I gotta say, I think so far. Well, you know what? I'll leave this for another episode. But the other gaming update.
Cliffhanger.
Sorry. The other gaming update is that I have played and finished Nier Automata. And oh my gosh, was that an experience. We're going to have a full review episode with a special guest that we're going to record in 2 weeks. So look forward to that. It's going to be, we're going to unpack a lot of that game. But, yeah.
Give the people what they want to hear. Give them 3 words that you would use to describe the game.
Best single player game. Yep, that's how I describe it.
So there you go.
How about you? What's your update?
So as you guys remember from our mini episodes, I've been chugging through a lot of stuff. I've gotten Bowser's Fury done. You can go ahead and listen to that mini episode and get some more of my thoughts on that. But my main gaming update is that I'm still working on Final Fantasy VII Remake. This morning I finished Chapter 8. There are 18 chapters, and from what I understand, the beginning chapters are a little bit longer. I mean, I could be wrong on that. That's just what I've heard. Don't attack me if I'm wrong, because as we say on this podcast, Alex is always wrong. But it's great so far. One thing that I really like that's really minor is that they actually have like your game clock running on like just the regular pause menu.
Yeah, they do.
So I know for a fact that I've been playing the game for 15 and a half hours. And I love it. Another meme on this podcast is that I like to take any shot that I can to hate on Xenoblade Chronicles 3. But let me tell you right now.
Like, you were so hyped for that game when it first came out.
Let me tell you right now. This game plays the way that Xenoblade should play. The combat is so much fun.
The combat is amazing in that game.
I don't know how they took, all right, we're going to take a turn-based game, make it kind of hack and slashy, but still keep turn-based ideas relevant.
You have to strategize. You
but
can't
it
just
works brilliantly. I mean, like... And just not to get too much into it because I want to have a full episode on it, but there's like this perfect balance of strategy and challenge and RPG elements, because there are times where you'll go into a fight and like you don't exactly have certain equipment that you're currently using as far as like your materia and the elements that you're using to be able to attack opponents' weaknesses, but you can still grind through the fight and get through it if you really want to.
Right.
And then there are times where I've gone in where I've had the right materia. I've had like every member of my party equipped with the right element, and the boss still kicks my butt once or twice before I figure it out. So there's just this... I really appreciate that the game has so many different types of boss fights where it's not just what elements you use, but are you focusing on attacking or dodging? Are you using the right debuffs on the enemy to, whittle away what you can? So I love it. Like, I'm very much engaged. As my introduction to the Final Fantasy VII sub-universe, I've been very, very pleased, and I'm very excited that the second part of the remake trilogy is coming out in February or March. I probably won't play it for a while. I'll wait until they release a full version of the game with all their DLC, but it's been great so far, and I'm excited to play more.
I'm so glad you're loving it.
Right, because, like, talking about Alex's expectations, right? Like, got home, played Xenoblade 3, so disappointed. Finally got my PlayStation and played Spider-Man. Loved it. everything I was looking forward to. Tried another game out and was sorely disappointed and quit and moved on to now Final Fantasy VII, another game I was very excited for, and it's living up to expectations. So I'm actually kind of scared for what game I choose to play next, because if we're following the pattern, it's going to be one that I'm disappointed in. So we'll see what we go with. But yeah.
Well, very good. Very good. Very good.
Starting today, we are introducing a new episode segment into our show. We posted about it on our social medias and in our Discord. But from now on, we are going to start each episode by taking a question from one of our listeners, or in this case, multiple questions, and answering them real quick. We really want to build a stronger community and encourage people to join our Discord and be a vocal part of our show. And we thought SJ had this idea and thought it'd be a good way to get you guys involved. So we're really excited to start implementing it with our first round of questions.
And we're going to read all of them this time, just because we think we can get through them real quick. So
exactly. And so to start, our first question came from our user Zaruma, who asked, what is our favorite game genre, and what is our favorite game within that genre? So I thought this was kind of interesting, because it's like, what if your favorite genre overall is different than the genre of your favorite game ever? So like for a second I was a little bit conflicted, but I think I kind of came to an answer pretty quickly on this.
My favorite game ever, first of all, has got to be Smash Bros. Ultimate.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the only fighting game like I ever play, basically. So my favorite game genre is action adventure. Definitely. My favorite game in that genre, I cannot answer today, because it will be spoilery.
It will be spoiler for the Game of the Year episode.
Game of the Year. So I can't answer that.
Yeah.
What about you?
So my favorite genre is also action adventure. I will say that platformers in general are kind of creeping up on it a bit more than I thought, especially after this year's success in both Grease and Celeste. But for now, it is still action adventure. And I can mention my favorite, because it is not spoilery, because it is still, of course, The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker, which is just this beautiful, beautiful blend of... It's definitely more adventure-based, in my opinion, than action, because the combat is a bit simple and not as much of a focus in that Zelda game compared to some others. But I love it. I love it so much.
Well, the next question is, if your favorite franchise was canceled, this is from JC Hansen, what franchise would you go to try and replace it? So if my favorite franchise is gone, what would be then my favorite franchise to take that place?
Is that what it is, or... Okay, you know what? Go ahead. I'll wait, and then...
Okay. That's how I interpret that question.
Okay.
My favorite franchise is the Zelda franchise, definitely. If that was canceled, I think my new favorite... I was thinking about this before the episode. It might be Elder Scrolls.
Really? Just because of Skyrim?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm trying to think of others, and because like, I don't know why I forgot about Fire Emblem. It might be Fire Emblem. It could be.
You've played through Three Houses,
I've finished 2
Engage.
of them. That's it.
Okay.
I've gone back and played like one of the other older ones, but it was like really brutal.
Yeah. Yeah.
It could be Fire Emblem. Oh, Pokemon though.
Ooh, that's true.
Pokemon.
That's probably it.
It's probably Pokemon.
Mm.
Yeah. What's yours?
So my favorite franchise is also The Legend of Zelda. Surprise, surprise. And so I was thinking about this, and I was like, so okay, what would I go to try to replace? So what would I play? What would be my favorite franchise that is also like action adventure based? Or would it just be like, as far as an entirely new genre, what's next up on the list? and I didn't know. As far as like a replacement action adventure franchise, I don't think that I'd really have one.
Kingdom Hearts?
Maybe, but like when I think about it, I'm like, there are two of those games that I really like, and then two that I think are good, and then the other ones I'm like, oh, this is
Yeah.
not much. I don't know if I'd consider it an entire franchise. I'd say that my runner up would probably just be the Mario franchise, because I can't remember the last time that I played a Mario game that I like just didn't enjoy at all.
Right. Well, and if you say the Mario franchise, that is like such a wide range of games.
I'll say like the
You have a
Mario
lot of good
platformers,
stuff.
right? So like the Mario 3D platformers.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah,
so
that's solid. That's solid.
because I mean, Mario Odyssey is in my top 5 of all time. I love Mario Galaxy. Mario Galaxy 2 is pretty good. It's just kind of more Galaxy, so it's not as good as it could be. Sunshine's fun, not as good as I remember it being, which I discovered recently after playing through the 3D All-Stars collection, which was disappointing. But 3D World was fun. Bowser's Fury is fun. So that'd probably be like my go-to if Zelda didn't exist.
Sunshine is still my favorite 3D Mario. I think that game has aged like fine wine.
I don't. I think the jank is too frustrating for me now, because like the reason that I like platformers is having so much control over how my character moves, and I feel like Mario moves better in Mario 64 than in Sunshine, let alone Galaxy and
that's a
Odyssey.
hot take. That's a hot take.
I know.
I mean, Odyssey. I'm not going to get into this. Just one sentence, or one paragraph. I think Odyssey Mario has the most control options. You can move Mario the most in Odyssey. Right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
I think Mario Sunshine has the perfect amount of limitations to make it nice and challenging. Like the levels where you don't have flood, I live for those. I love those so much.
Yes, I just think there are multiple areas where it's not the meme of the jank of Sunshine is definitely real. It's pretty janky. There are times where it's like,
okay, swimming is jank.
Ooh.
Swimming kind of sucks.
There are times where just like if you're on like the slightest angle, like you're gonna slide way more than you should. Like you can just like straight up like lose all traction and just like fall and lose a bunch of progress. Maybe I'm just bad at it. That's possible. It's very possible that I just suck at Sunshine. But I remember being like very frustrated. I made it about
there is a
15 to 20 shines in on my replay, and I was just like, this doesn't feel right. Like I feel like it wasn't as much for me as I remember being. I still think like the theming and like level design as far as like aesthetics is better in Sunshine than anywhere else, and the music,
so good.
But and our last question for today, coming from user Qualthorn, is what is your favorite Pokemon?
So I have never been able to just give one answer to this question. It is always two. I've always had two favorite. One is Kingdra.
Okay.
The other is Milotic.
I
can
not
never
think
pick
either
between
of those
two.
I thought Lapras would have been in there.
Oh, really? I do like Lapras a lot.
Yeah.
Lapras is in my PC. I just don't have a Kingdra or Milotic.
And just out of curiosity, assuming water's your favorite type, correct?
Water is my favorite type in terms of, I think water Pokemon are the most beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And I love water Pokemon design above all the others. But in terms of using in battle, Steel is my favorite.
I love Steel Pokemon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you?
Well, I also have two that I would like to highlight. First off, this was highlighted in our Patreon episode, but we're going to give this to all our listeners anyway. While SJ was in Japan, he went to a Pokemon Center and got me a little present. This right here is a little beauty called a Dragapult. This is from Gen 8. If you haven't played with this Pokemon, you're missing out, because this is one of the best Pokemon ever. Just like design-wise, with like the bomber jet and how fast
amazing.
it is, the color scheme.
Yeah.
I love this Pokemon in both of my Shield playthroughs. But as far as nostalgia goes, maybe you guys remember that I am a big Gen 4 defender and think that Sinnoh is the best region because that is the region that I remember playing the most. And with that, the starter line of Turtwig to Grotle to Torterra is unbeatable.
That's a really good one.
Design-wise, it's great. Typing, not perfect, but as far as grass, having the ground subtype
It's decent.
I love that Pokemon line so much, like to the point where I'm sure you've had this thought, like if I were in the Pokemon world and I was either the champion or, a gym leader or something, what would like my ace be? Mine would be a Torterra.
That's a good choice, man.
Yeah.
That was my starter in Gen 4 too.
Oh, so good.
And man, when I saw the final evolution, I was like, I picked the right one. This is it.
A turtle with a tree.
So cool.
What more do you need?
Yeah, nothing. Okay.
Well, there you go. Thank you to all three of you who submitted those questions. We were very excited to get responses so quickly. And if any of you would like to join in on the fun, the link to the Discord, as always, is in our episode description. And
going forward, we might just do one question, but we were just kind of excited and just wanted to do all of them. So we'll just do whatever we feel like.
And it depends, right? Like, I mean, some questions we're going to need more time to answer, right? So, like, if your question is a little bit longer, it might just take a while to either get to or whatever because of other questions that we have stacked up. But, we have our goal set of answering every single one, quickly and within a timely manner. So join the Discord.
We love you.
Well, we do. What?
Now, on to our main topic. We are ranking Tears of the Kingdom bosses. And just as a side note, we are not counting mini bosses. So bosses like the overworld bosses, we're completely omitting those for the purpose of this video.
And this is your spoiler warning. We are going to include discussions on the final boss in this. So if you still haven't finished the game, because I know there are some of you that haven't yet, this is your time to go ahead and turn the episode off. Wait until you finish and come back. But with that, are you ready to get started?
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's do it.
First one, Master Koga. You fight him several times in the depths, and I think he's fine. Should we be doing like an out of 10 thing?
Sure.
I would say he is 6 out of 10. 6 or 7. I don't really think he's a bad boss. He's not particularly the most exciting to me.
Yeah.
Very easy to beat.
Yeah.
He's fine.
I'd give it that. It's interesting because, right, like he's not very interesting, but you get to have fun using Zonai devices to fight him a lot of times.
Yeah, he's fun and he's funny.
But at the same time, there were multiple times where I was very big on, I really like the depth as an idea, but exploring in the dark was not my favorite thing to do. So I would like specifically target light routes very, very quickly to try to illuminate as much of the depths as I could.
I did that too.
But there were still multiple points where I just like stumbled upon Koga and had to fight him in the dark. And like in that aspect, like that was not overly enjoyable. But yeah, I'd stick it around like a 6 out of 10 if I had to go with that.
Colgera.
Colgera is a boss that you first fight in the Wind Temple.
So this is the one that looks like a massive flying centipede with little crystal sphere things along its abdomen. This boss, man, like, not a difficult boss, but the level of engagement and just like in the moment, you know, I just felt so cool fighting this boss. I can't give it any less than 8 out of 10. It was so good. I mean, you might convince me that it's like, I'd say 8. 8.5 maybe out of 10.
I'd give it a 9. This is one of my favorite bosses in the game.
Yeah, you could talk me into a 9.
So the first time that I fought it, I was using arrows to shoot at its, you know, weak spots, right? And super fun. And because when you're like diving around in the sky, I like to be a little bit of a showman. It took me like a good chunk of time. So as I was listening to the boss music, there's a point where the Dragon Roost Island theme from Wind Waker kicks in with like these blaring horns and stuff.
Oh my gosh.
And it was like at that moment where I like shot off my final arrow and like killed him and stuff. And it was just mwah, mwah. But shooting him with arrows is not the best way to fight this boss. If he shoots off his spikes and just has those crystals exposed and you just dive through them, like you break through the glass and you feel like, I don't know what the right answer is.
Every single time. I just dove right through. So satisfying.
It's so good.
And like the thing is, the game does a good job of teaching you that that's a thing that you should be able to do. Because like as you know, the whole segment like leading up to the temple, like you do those things, like dive down through glass to like break something.
Exactly.
So like the boss doesn't need to tell you, hey, you can do this. You already know. It's brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah. I really like that one. So
if that boss was like a little more difficult, I think it'd be 10 out of 10. Perfect boss fight for me. The only thing it's missing is that it's not very difficult, but I honestly don't mind.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah. Moving on to the Marbled Goma.
Yeah, what do you I'll have you go first on this one.
So I kind of go back and forth on this. It's a Goma fight, right? It's attack a spider, hit it in the weak point. That's what Goma's always been in Zelda.
Keep going. She pooped on me.
Oh, lovely. While he's taking care of that, I'll just talk to you guys. So, it's difficult for me because it's a fight that we have done so many different times. I will say I like that instead of just like targeting an eye and waiting for it, like you have to actively go ahead and like take out its legs with your champion. I'd say that this is the only, well, I guess not. Never mind, that statement wouldn't make any sense. But the point is, this boss is good. It's acceptable. It is not anything special. Yeah, I think those are probably my best ways to describe it.
I liked it. It was fine. I liked it probably better than Koga. No more.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
You know, 6.8.
Something like that.
Yeah, something like
that's
that.
fine.
Okay. Muktarok. This was my least favorite boss in the game. This is the little octopus thing that flies around in muck. And tell me if she's bugging you.
No worries.
It was just like elements of it were cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like when it turns into a shark and you have to hit it out of it with water. But like when it starts like flapping around and you have to chase it down and you've got muck all over you, like it's just tedious. It's not really difficult, but it's just tedious, and I don't think that's a good design for a boss. When difficulty is replaced with tediousness.
I 100% agree. It's right, like when you're trudging through stuff that makes it harder to move for not really any discernible reason.
Right.
And like it produces so much of it. Like when the fight starts, he sprays a bunch, and then when he goes into shark mode, he sprays a bunch, and then when you kill the shark, more of it gets splurted out. It's just like you could spend, a good bit of time clearing out that space so you can move around, but it just gets replaced. So it's like there's no way to really just get rid of it and then fight the boss. You have to deal with not really being able to move all that well.
Yeah.
So there's no way to get around the tedious nature of it.
Yeah. This is one where we 100% agree. And
I just don't.
I think like that's the thing is either the boss is going to be frustrating because it's tedious, or if you're really good at clearing the muck and you have like the right equipment to do it quickly, like sapphire rods and stuff, you'll just beat the boss really quickly.
Yeah.
It's just, so it's nothing special.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say that one is 4 out of 10.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was going to give it.
Yeah.
Man, we're actually like in agreement.
Dude, now I think this is where we're going to disagree.
Yeah, probably.
Queen Gibdo. I'll go first.
Go ahead.
This was one of my favorites. I really liked that you are introduced to the boss like before you even get into the dungeon. Like that was a unique thing to see. And I was like, whoa, like we haven't even gotten in yet. Like, are we just gonna beat the boss right here? But no, like the boss retreats. So that was it was cool to like that they switch it up like that. The difficulty was just right for me. Like I loved that there were like quick crawler Gibdos and other like flying Gibdos like coming after you where you're trying to beat the boss and you have to like, Riju. The only thing that's a little frustrating, but I don't think this is the boss's fault, is like Riju's lightning thing. Sometimes she's not where you want her to be, and that can be a little frustrating. But I think that's a design flaw of Riju. But the boss itself, how you beat it, even with that little, Riju jankiness, I really, really enjoyed. I enjoyed having to multitask during a boss fight and like take care of this horde of enemies while also trying to quickly take down, these little pod things where they're spawning, and while at the same time trying to beat the boss.
Oh no, go back over to SJ.
No, come over here.
Stop biting my earbuds.
Don't do that. So I really liked it. 8 out of 10.
Interesting. I agree with a lot of what you said. I think introducing it at the beginning and then fighting it at the end was a very good move. I think like the overall design of it is nice. I totally agree with the Riju thing. That's one of my big problems with it is I just think Riju's ability was handled less than perfectly throughout the game.
Kind of weak.
And which is weird, right? Because you think back to Breath of the Wild and Urbosa's Fury is like perfectly what you want, right? But anyway, not to get into comparisons here, but I felt like this fight was too long. Now, let me answer that. I have no problem with long boss fights. My problem with this one was that like there really wasn't like a substantial phase change. Yeah. And so I just felt like I was having to do the same thing, like not just the standard 3 times, but it was like 7, 8, or 9 cycles. And I don't know if that was just a me thing. I don't know if I was doing something improperly, but it just felt like I was doing the same thing for so long that I got disinterested by the time the fight was over.
That's fair.
So I probably wouldn't give it an 8, but I would rank it higher than Goma. So I'd give it like 7.5. Is probably where I would put it.
Okay. But that's understandable.
All right. The Seized Construct.
So I really like that one.
I really like this fight too.
It was so unique.
It's so good.
You're in a wrestling ring.
Mm-hmm.
two constructs, and the way that you defeat it, it was like a fighting game.
Mm-hmm.
You have to counter them. You have to, it was simple, but not straightforward. You had to think of like, okay, how am I going to counter this move? How am I going to take him out? How do I need to do, what do I need to do damage? Yeah, 8 out of 10 at least, maybe 9 actually, now that I'm thinking about it.
No, I really like it. I really liked the customizable nature of it because, right, the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are, they give you a lot more options as far as combat, but when it comes to boss fights, there's still kind of straightforward. There's still certain things that have to be done in order for you to fight this boss, but here you have like a lot of different choices of how you want to kind of equip your construct.
Right.
Like, do you want to throw on a cannon? Which elements do you want? Do you want to throw something on the back? Which, I did. I threw a little flamethrower on there so that if I was turning around and running away, I could still have the back going and
I never thought
covering
about
my
that.
back
That's
a little
genius.
bit.
Yeah.
I just thought it was super fun being in a wrestling fight and having a cannon on my right arm and like an electric shocker on my left and like just stomping towards him, shooting like an absolute tank and then beating the crap out of him with a lightning rod. It was a lot of fun. I have like no complaints about the fight.
There's nothing I would change about that fight. Absolutely nothing.
Perfect length. I would give it a 9. I think it's a very good fight.
Yeah.
All right, and now, are we including Phantom Ganon with the rest of it? Because I feel like it's... I don't remember fighting Phantom Ganon at the, final boss. Do you?
Yeah, well, I guess, there is that boss segment, at the castle, right at the end of after you're done chasing Zelda, and you get the whole bunch of phantoms. So
I would consider that its
counts.
own contained fight, but separate from these last 3 that we're going to discuss, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
I agree.
So what do you think about Phantom Ganon in this game?
I thought it was really cool. I mean, aside from the fact that the first time I encountered it, I was just technically this is an overworld boss, but for the sake of this conversation, when you beat the Gloom Hands and it comes out, I was just so freaked out, and I was like, how do I beat this thing? I really liked it as a boss, and when you encounter 5 of them at the same time after you're done chasing Zelda, that's a whole nother challenge. It's okay, one of them is already fairly difficult. How are you going to tackle 5? And you have to it's all critical combat thinking on the spot that you have to do. And there's probably multiple ways to do it. And that was what I liked about it, is it's a simple fight, but it's difficult because they're all fairly tanky and you got to take them all out.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. The first time that I fought a Phantom Ganon was in the Lost Woods. I'd went, and the Deku Tree was sick, and so I went down near his roots, and 3 Gloom Hands pop up. And I had seen a Gloom Hand before, but I had never fought it. It was creeping around somewhere, and I was just no.
Yeah.
And I ran away without even trying to fight it. And then in here, the way that it was set up was I went down and there's no way to get back up. The only way to get back up is you either die or you beat them, and then a cutscene takes you out of this ginormous column pitfall. And it took me 30 minutes to figure out how to fight him. And so adding on to then going to Hyrule Castle and seeing that there were 5 at once, I was well, I don't really know how to do this, but I think that it is effective. I think that it's scary. I think it's fun. I think it's decently challenging, no matter where you are in the game. Whether you're experiencing them when you have, just having left the Great Sky Island or even near the end of the game, they're still... You never really feel comfortable fighting them unless you fought, dozens and dozens of Gloom Hands. So I really liked it. Plus, whenever you fight Gloom enemies and their attacks take your hearts away and you can't get them back until after the fight's done. It's like an extra level of like, okay, well, freak, what do I do? Am I actually prepared?
More difficult. Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of the Phantom Cannons.
Yeah, 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I'll give him that.
Really good.
Alrighty, now the final boss. Now, I'm just going to throw out one more spoiler warning because I know that the people that I've been warning about that haven't finished the game have fought up till this point. Like, all they have left is the last, like, hour of the game.
This is the final boss we're going to talk about now.
You have no more chances, okay? Okay. So there's 3 phases to this fight. You start off fighting the Demon King, and then you fight him off once he's, like, actually a demon, and then you fight him as a dragon. Before we dive into the specifics of each phase, overall, what do you think of the fight?
Like the sequence of battles, all of them. I don't think I'd change anything. It was really good.
I think it's near perfect.
Like, if I didn't give it a 10 out of 10, I wouldn't be able to tell you the reason it would be less than 10 out of 10. So I might just need to give it 10 out of 10.
I'd give it a 9.5. There is one thing I'd change, but before we get to that, let's just go through bit by bit.
Sure.
So the first, when you start and you're finally fighting Ganondorf, it is so good. And the moment where I realized that it was going to be a fight that I would remember was when he perfect dodged one of my attacks.
When he flurry rushes your flurry rush,
and you're like, oh,
like he's got like main character energy exuding him.
It's like that's the only way that I'm going to be able to actually hit damage on him, because I, try to shoot an arrow and he blocks it.
Yeah.
I hit him with just a regular slice and he either blocks it, or if it does hit him, it takes out like this tiniest sliver. So if my flurry rushes don't work, how am I supposed to kill him?
Yeah.
And then there's that moment, I can't remember if it's in this or once he transforms, but he like heals himself and his health bar like expands really far past.
Oh my gosh, it goes
I was like,
off the screen?
I was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Are you freaking kidding? I do think there's one final boss sequence, maybe 2, that I enjoy more than this one in the Zelda franchise, but I've never felt so scared fighting Ganon.
You have like an adrenaline rush
as
fighting
in this
him.
one.
Yeah. And the moment you realize that you need to flurry rush his flurry rush after your flurry rush, so like you dodge and then he comes at you and then you have to flurry rush his flurry rush at the right time, and then you'll be able to do like decent damage. It is just the coolest thing. Just 2 incredibly skilled swordsmen just going at it raw. And it was incredible. And it's when he turns into the Demon King that you get I think he summons phantoms, right? And you have to fight them at the same time, but your champions come to help you out, and it's such an emotional moment.
It made me cry. I cried.
It was so good.
Like,
it was so sweet.
So leading up to this fight, right? I'm just going to talk, because like there's that moment where you have the enemy hordes, right? And you're fighting them.
Right. Yeah, go for it.
Well, yeah, just getting away from the boss fight itself, but talking about the emotional buildup, right? Like you're fighting and you're doing fine, and then all of a sudden the cutscene plays where like they all show up and you're like, oh,
they're here to help me.
And I think it's because like in these games, right, like companion characters in Zelda games like play a big role.
Right.
And in these 2 games, like that's one of my only things that I wish was a little different, was that I wish that there was a companion character. And in Tears of the Kingdom, you kind of get that with like the sage spirits, but you don't have to have them around, and they don't
talk. They're
right.
They're clones.
It's pretty much a combat only mechanic.
Yeah.
But seeing Sidon come in with his freaking spear, and you're just like,
dude,
I'm not doing it alone.
Yeah.
And sorry, not to get too sidetracked, but you got to remember when I was playing through this game, I was in Amsterdam on that internship and was pretty lonely because a lot of people that I was there with just were not really interested in engaging with the things that I wanted to do, and the things they wanted to do I wasn't comfortable joining them and doing. So I felt very alone, and I didn't finish this game until I came home, but like all those emotions were still wrapped up in the game.
Yeah.
And then to see that come through, it was like an extra burst. And then they come in on the second phase of the fight, and it's just like, whew. Whew.
Well, and it's a particularly unique moment in any Zelda game, because that kind of thing just doesn't really happen. You know, the closest we got to like, people actually helping Link, like in that kind of capacity with like a boss, was in Breath of the Wild, when you have like, the laser beams shooting from
the divine beasts
that do damage. But even that's not quite the same, because those are passed on spirits. They're just aiding you, from the other side from another life, right? And they're not there with you fighting in the moment. And to like have them there with you, it was so powerful. And I loved how they introduced them and how they came. And just when you think that, oh my gosh, how am I going to defeat all these hordes of enemies? Because like, he just keeps summoning more and more and more, you fight waves of enemies. And just as you start wondering, how is this going to turn out, they come and help you. And this is like the only time Link is not alone in like a really critical moment.
And I think there's probably some added emotions for me there, because these aren't one-off characters either, right? Like, for as much of a Goro as Unibo is, he, him and Riju and Sidon, you all spend significant amount of time with them in Breath of the Wild, let alone in Tears of the Kingdom. And Tulin's a little bit of a different story, but like, because this game functions as a sequel, I think there's more build up to these characters, and so I think that adds in more of that. Like,
I agree.
We've been through a lot with these guys. It's not just the one time we've helped them. Like, no, like, we've spent
there's actual history with them. Yeah,
years.
And there have been times when like Zelda helps you fight and stuff, right? But it's a little different, because having Zelda there, it's like, well, of course, like, she's Zelda. She's going to be there to help you. It's not an outsider.
It's the three of them that are continuously recycled. When these other guys do it, it's like, okay, wow, like they really care. This is it. Like, this could be it. So and then of course the boss transitions into your fight with the demon dragon.
Dude. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I got pretty emotional when the champions came to help. During the demon dragon fight, that kind of like cracked the shell for me. When Zelda comes and you're fighting him with Zelda, somehow, she doesn't have her mind, but instinctually, her will to save Link in Hyrule is just compelling her to help you beat this other dragon, which would have been completely impossible without her help. And the way you fight him is really cool. You're flying through the air, kind of reminiscent to that other boss that we were talking about. Like, it's not particularly difficult, but it doesn't need to be, right? Like, you've already finished the difficult part, and this is just the climax of the story, and I loved it.
Right, so I completely agree. That's the only note that I have for this fight, is that I do wish that there was a way that it was more difficult, but at the same time, I don't feel like I can really say that, because I don't know what I would change in place of that. Right? Like, how he moves, the weak points that you're attacking, the way that you're interacting with him versus with Zelda, it's like, I wouldn't want any of that to change. So I don't know how you make the fight more difficult than it is.
Right. Because it can't really be frustrating. It's got to be easy enough, I think, that all of those emotions that have been introduced, with the champions and everything, like, I think it needs to be a boss fight that most players can beat without a whole lot of effort.
Right. It's got to be a triumphant feeling.
Yeah, that's how
you have to feel dominant. So I really liked it. And then, I mean, of course, we'll get into a story discussion another episode. But after this fight, just kind of the last few button inputs you do to end the game were... Because again, it's like this isn't just concluding this game that I put 150 hours into. It's concluding a story that we started in 2017, which video game franchises ending happen all the time, but you don't really get that with Zelda. You don't get, the other sequel, Majora's Mask to Ocarina of Time, it's very much its own contained story. This one is the only time Zelda's had that real crossover.
It's a direct sequel.
Landed
the story
as
is just taking
successfully.
place right after the other. Yeah,
it's phenomenal. Just to throw this out there, because I know I mentioned it earlier, I think Ocarina of Time's final boss sequence, starting from when you fight Ganon, when he's playing the organ and stuff, I think that's a little bit stronger and cleaner of a fight overall. And I do prefer Wind Waker's final boss a little bit. But again, I don't really have any notes of what I would change. It's just so good. So good. Such a strong way to end.
I think this, honestly, I always have a hard time giving 10 out of 10s because it's okay, does that mean it's perfect? Does that mean there's nothing that can be improved? I don't know. But if I can't think of anything that I would change, I'd be doing a disservice to the game by not giving it a 10 out of 10. And I think this boss sequence is a 10 out of 10 for me. Ocarina of Times is a 10 out of 10 for me. I think they each do it differently, and they both do it really, really well. Same thing with Skyward Sword. I think that final boss sequence is 10 out of 10. I loved it so much. So...
they did real good with the bosses in this game. Only having one that's really weak, that's pretty impressive.
I agree.
Right?
They really outdid themselves, especially after kind of the mediocre final boss of Breath of the Wild.
I thought Breath of the Wild's boss was fine until he becomes a pig. When he goes into beast form, then it's this is really easy. And again, in my mind, I'm that's kind of a more cinematic feel to it. But I also get why people are this was a major...
That was super lame. I think what is fighting Ganon in that machine form, I can't remember what he was actually titled. That was difficult and fun, and I liked it, but it can never reach the amount of climax as this game. Aside from all the gameplay aspects, the guy in this game in Tears of the Kingdom talks. He can diss you. It can be so much more emotional and personal because he's not a mech.
No, I totally agree that this is a better
aspects,
fight.
Yeah, I liked it in Breath of the Wild, and I was oh my gosh, this is crazy. But then Dark Beast Ganon was a bit of a letdown.
I still love shooting that final arrow into his head. But I was kind of surprised that in the final phase of it,
he just stands there and
I
shoots
wasn't
beams in one
hit
direction
at all. But we'll have to do a deeper comparison of the games and stuff in another episode.
Woo.
Hello.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us again. We're back to doing this again now that I'm back from Japan. You may have some remote episodes coming in the future because Alex doesn't live so close anymore. But we've got another in-person session coming up in 2 weeks, and thank you to all of our Patreon supporters, to Grandpappy, Joshua, and Tyler. All three of you are amazing. And all of you for just listening. And please check out our socials, especially the Discord. All of those will be in the links. And let us know what you thought about these bosses.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.